Turn 1 Soul Ring.
All right.
Lightning bolt. Oh boy, that is out of context. And welcome to the show. This is Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
And I'm Riley.
And today on the show, we are going to be reviewing and upgrading the Zendikar Rising Commander decks, which at the time of this recording will be released tomorrow. Because there are only 3 new cards in each deck, the review process isn't going to take too long. But we're also going to get into some other aspects of the deck and really just our general thoughts about these decks out of the box. Then we're going to get to the upgrades, just like the upgrades we previously made on the Ikoria Commander decks a couple months ago. Instead of having a budget, we have limited the upgrades to, well, it's not really balanced, but it's 18 cards in the Rogue deck and 40 cards in the Lands deck. And if that seems unfair, we're going to explain that when we get to the upgrade portion of this episode. Just a callback to our Commander League. This is sort of the upgrading process we do with those decks. We don't do it based on financial value. We do it based on card slots. And also as a content creator, that's something that we like to avoid because, the big boys that do this, they'll do like a, whatever, $50 or $25 upgrade. And as soon as that episode comes out, that upgrade is no longer, $50 or $25 because all the cards go up in value. So we're just doing card slots, and it's a budget-ish. It's not gonna break the bank by any stretch of the imagination, unless you don't really have any money. Then it's gonna be bad for you. But
I don't know. The additions that I'm suggesting cost a whopping $36.43. So
whoa, yeah. Well, you could always just
budget.
You could always just print them on your nice inkjet printer. So there you go. Or just write the card names on little pieces of paper that you put in sleeves. That works too. No judgment.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah. So before we get to any of that though, Eric, how can listeners get in touch with us? I almost forgot to ask you.
Oh, what would have happened?
I don't know.
They would have been lost.
Everybody, you can find us over at Turn 1 Soul Ring, the podcast, on Instagram. You can also message us directly. Let us know what's going on. If you like our episodes, if you just want to give a comment, maybe a suggestion about something, hit us up, turn1soulring.thepodcast at gmail.com. And then, of course, we are throwing up everything onto YouTube. Go check us out there. Turn 1 Soul Ring, the podcast is the easiest way to find us.
That's right. And I always forget, we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Turn1SoulRing. Check out our reward tiers, see if anything looks good to you. But without any further ado, we're going to start off with the new cards from the Lands Wrath deck. So the first one here is the Commander. It's Obun, Moldaya Ancestor. Obun.
Yeah.
He is, we're going with Obun. He is 1 and Naya, so red, green, white for a legendary creature elf spirit. He's a 3/3, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, up to 1 target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until end of turn, where X is Obun's power. It's still a land, and he has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So, what do we think about this brand new potential commander?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the consensus of Turn 1 Soul Ring.
Yeah. Just a big eh.
So, the bad thing I think about this is that for being some sort of commander with how his abilities work, if the land stayed a creature, I think this would be a lot more viable. But because it's only until end of turn, it's just really weak. Like, it's worse than, like, the Nissa Planeswalker and stuff. How they stay a creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's even one of the creatures in the deck that can make a land into a creature, and it just stays that. The Waker of the Wilds.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, that ability is better than what your commander's doing. Like,
yeah, and, when it comes to the 1/1 counters, you can put them on any creature. You can, it's more ideal to put them on Oban, so the land that you target at the beginning of combat is even bigger, but you're just putting even more of a target on his back, and he doesn't have any kind of abilities that make it harder for him to be removed. So I feel like in that way, he's also not the strongest commander.
yeah.
In some way I can kind of appreciate him, just in the sense that he's not like game warping like Chulane or Corvold was for the Brawl decks.
Yeah.
So I could definitely appreciate that. But as far as landfall or, like land animation themes go, like he's a little bit, he leaves a little to be desired. That's for sure.
Okay, next up we have Geode Rager. It's 4 red for a 4/3 elemental with first strike. It has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, goad each creature target player controls. And just in case you forgot, until your next turn, those creatures attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. I really like this card. Not so much in a lands deck. I mean, I love the goad mechanic in general. I think in the commander format, we tend not to attack, especially if we're playing with people we haven't played with before, and especially in the early turns. And, we don't want to make undue enemies. And a threat assessment can also be difficult in those early turns. But, if you play more commander, you learn that those points of chip damage actually do end up mattering. And it's important to attack your opponents if you can get through with little or no cost to your game plan. And I think the goad mechanic just helps to normalize that kind of let's get into combat mindset. So like that's why I really like it and really like this card. It's sort of like repeatable Disrupt Decorum, which I really like, and targetable. I think Disrupt Decorum hits all your opponents, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I'm thinking of putting this or trying it out in Zancha because that deck just wants everybody to attack everybody.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
It's just a really fun ability. I think this is a neat new addition into the commander format.
It's definitely a really powerful landfall trigger. Like to be able to effectively turn your opponent's creatures into weapons that can't attack you, and to essentially tap them down for the following turn so that you could swing in at them. Like that's going to be a really strong effect. And the fact that it's repeatable with every land that you play, it just makes your lands more relevant, especially in the late game once you are, slamming a 6-mana big boy.
Yeah.
If you have some sort of board state, you get 2 landfall triggers, and then your next turn you can swing in pretty favorably.
Yeah, or at least ruin somebody's day.
Yeah.
Which almost feels as good, if not a little bit better, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, just get him.
Okay, let's move on to the last new card in the lands deck. It's Trove Warden. Trove Warden is 2 white for a 3/4 cat beast with vigilance. It has landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, exile target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. And when it dies, put each permanent card exiled with it onto the battlefield under the control of that card's owner. So what do we think about the old Trove Warden?
It kind of, I'm sure there's some combos out there that you could break with this. I haven't really looked very deeply into the combos myself, but it feels a little bit like Sun Titan in the sense that, like, it's a little bit of a long-term investment. With every land you get a permanent out of your graveyard, or I guess in a pinch you can target your opponent's graveyard, right? Or is it just your graveyard?
It's just your graveyard.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a weird clause to
have
like,
that card's
put it
owner.
under.
Yeah.
Owner's
Yeah.
It's
control?
strange. It's
Yeah.
strange that they would put that on
You can't-
there.
If you
I
can only
guess
target your own graveyard.
Yeah, if you're playing with some unset that, maybe a card goes into your opponent's graveyard, maybe that's why it's relevant.
Yeah, it could be because people will play,
away.
a kitchen table commander. They'll play with whatever rules they want to, right?
Yeah.
It's
but my creature's going to die and go into your graveyard.
it's really an even
just
longer term investment than Sun Titan because Sun Titan you get a little bit every turn. Like with this, you don't get it until this dies, and this specifically has to die. If it's removed another way, you don't get anything.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know where this goes at the moment. So
Yeah, it can just be some incidental, value at times.
yeah, and I mean, if you do have a lot of graveyard hate in your meta that isn't graveyard hate like Leyline of the Void or Rest in Peace, where it's just things don't go to graveyards and some mass graveyard effect is coming, you can slowly like exile things out of your graveyard to save them. But again, this has to die. So it's, a lot is riding on it.
Yeah, it'd be nice to like, run this in like black white and maybe exile like an Animate Dead or what's the other one? A Necromancy out of the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe have a sack outlet, and over the course of the game, put a couple other things under there, sacrifice it, get the Necromancy back onto the battlefield, and then bring this out of the graveyard back to the battlefield attached to Necromancy.
Yeah, now you're cooking with fire.
That might be fun.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
For sure. Okay, so let's move on to the new cards from the Sneak Attack deck. And this isn't a new card, but I thought it was kind of a missed opportunity that Sneak Attack wasn't in this deck, even though it's red. I mean, I know that. But
it's the wrong color. That's illegal.
color shifted Sneak Attack.
There you go. The commander of this deck is Anawan, the Rune Thief. He's 2, a blue and a black for a 2/4 legendary vampire rogue. Other rogues you control get +1/+1. Whenever one or more rogues you control deals combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If the player mills at least 1 creature card this way, you draw a card. I really love tribal, and anytime a tribe gets a dedicated tribal commander that didn't have one before, I'm there for it, even if it's not the best card. Not that Anawan isn't a good card. It's just very interesting, and I think this card is more in line with the Chulanes or the Corvalds. I don't think it's at the same power level, but it really doesn't make you do too much extra work. It really does synergize well with itself, and it says draw a card on it, which is what you want on a commander. You want it to say draw a card or ramp.
Yeah, I don't think this is nearly as broken as Chulane or Corvald by any means. Like you have to do some work to get some value out of Anawan. Mm-hmm. You don't just have to play Magic to get a huge amount of value. If you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
But yeah, it is really great that it's like all rogues have the ability. So when any rogue deals damage to a player, they mill a card for all the damage that they were dealt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he helps out with that with that 1 power boost.
Yeah, and then of course, so you can draw up to 3 cards a turn, because if you hit all your opponents and they all end up milling a creature, that's 3 cards for you. So
yeah,
would he have been too powerful if for each creature card that was milled, you got to draw a card?
I think so.
You think so?
That would be fun.
Oh, it would be no doubt about it. Yeah, that would be fun, but maybe a bit much.
I still think there would be more powerful commanders out there, but I think that would be. I don't think that would be totally unreasonable.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was. That's sort of what
Especially
I felt that's missing a little bit here.
You look at a lot of rogues, and a lot of them are just really dinky and evasive, and that's kind of a theme of rogues.
Yeah,
so it's not
flavorful.
like you're inevitably milling a ton of cards. I'm sure there's ways, of course, to augment the power of your rogues to make it more powerful if that was the case. But
or like making players mill more and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, but it is this way, right? It says
this is the way.
Yeah, for if at least 1 creature card this if a player mills at least 1 creature card this way.
If we have Brewback out, we're doubling it all.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, it's just a fun little commander. I'd definitely be interested in building around this particular commander.
Definitely much more interesting than Obun.
Yeah.
Personally.
You can say that twice. So let's move on to Enigma Thief. It is 5 blue for a 5/5 Sphinx Rogue. It has Prowl and Flying. The Prowl cost is 3 and a blue, and you may cast this spell for its Prowl cost if you dealt damage to a player this turn with a Sphinx or a Rogue. So you're getting that extra Sphinx clause in there. It's not just rogues. And when
That's so cool.
It's very cool. And when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, return up to one target non-land permanent that player controls to its owner's hand. So with this deck, right, you're playing with a bunch of little rogues and you're trying to push damage through, and hopefully they have evasive abilities. But if they don't, you have Enigma Thief here to remove non-land permanents, but the Prowl is a combat damage trigger. So I don't know that it fits that well into this deck because you want to be attacking, you want to be removing the permanents before you attack, or if it's like a propaganda type of thing, you want to remove the propaganda before you attack. So I like this card, but I'm not sure it really fits into this strategy.
Well, I think it really depends. Like, again, a lot of these rogues are evasive. Like you look at a card like Slitherblade, which is just a blue mana 1/2 rogue that can't be blocked.
Mm-hmm.
And, like if there's creatures in your way, you just send in one of these little guys and then get a 4 mana 5/5 that bounces 3 non-land permanents. I think that's a pretty good payoff, even if it's after the fact.
But they can just replay that creature on the next turn, conceivably, if they already had it on the battlefield, right?
Yeah. I think if this deck is built well, it's just that tempo loss that is the important thing.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so let's move on to the last new card here. It's Whispersteel Dagger. It's 2 and a black for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast a creature spell from that player's graveyard this turn, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell, and the equip cost is unfortunately 3. I like a lot about this card. I like how flavorful it is. You're being roguey, you're getting damage through on the sly, and then you're getting to steal something. But I don't, and in this deck in particular, the +2 power works with Anawan's trigger to mill a couple extra cards, but I don't like that it costs 6 mana to get it onto a creature. All the other equipments in this set, they equip on ETB, and it doesn't give an evasive ability, or it doesn't, it's not like does something special for rogues. Like you could put this in any black deck, but if it was a little more geared towards rogues, I think I would like it a little better. But yeah, I think that mana cost just needs to come down somewhere for me.
Because then you still have to spend the mana to cast the creature out of the graveyard as well.
Yeah.
So it's like you're spending a lot of mana to be able to get a creature out of the graveyard. But yeah, I just think it's some fun incidental value. Not essentially like a super good card, but it's fun.
Yeah, I think for me, for this card to have been a home run, either the mana needs to come down, or you don't have to pay to cast the creature spell. I'm not sure which is the lesser of two evils.
I'd definitely run this in something like my Sir Gwyn Hero of Ashvale deck, where the equip cost becomes 0.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been flavorful for something like this to have an alternate equipped cost for rogues in particular. Like we've seen that with like Blackblade Reforged, where it's 7 to equip, but I think only 3 to equip to a legendary creature or something like that.
Yeah, You got it.
And that alternate equip cost would be cool to see. Maybe like 1 to equip to a rogue.
Yeah,
we're just adding that more rogue flavor. That would have been cool.
Yeah. If you want to find out more about the Blackblade, go back and listen to our Gideon Wrath of God Oathbreaker deck tech. I think that was like somewhere in the 20s. But
just make sure you call a judge.
yeah, because it's indestructible. It's not like destroy effects. I feel bad now.
Just call a judge.
So now we're going to move on to just kind of our first impressions of these decks. And these 6 cards we've talked about give us a pretty good idea of what each deck is trying to do out of the box. The lands deck is trying to do a token lands counters thing, whereas the rogue deck is trying to do a steal an opponent's cards kind of thing. And in terms of like overall interest, Are you guys interested in this product out of the box?
Sort of.
Yes and no.
Yeah, it's in the middle.
I really like the sneak attack deck. I mean, there's even fun reprints in there like Sig River Cutthroat and Notorious Throng, which is a pretty bizarre little card that I've run in like a Tetsuko Umezawa deck when I was running my own rogue deck prior to this kind of theme coming along. But the Lands Wrath deck, I just felt like the bulk of it was just that. It was bulk. It was like draft chaff from Cons of Tarkir block that just felt a little bit lacking and less exciting.
Yeah, you said it was. You said the lands deck is like draft chaff deck. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a lot of the value just comes from like a few of the cards, and then the rest of it's just a bunch of stuff. So that it's like, oh, this deck doesn't cost too much, but it's still doing the lands thing.
Yeah, I like the approach that I think overall I like the approach they took with getting rid of the Planeswalker decks, because who really cares about the Planeswalker decks to begin with?
Oh, totally.
And
but you get a couple boosters in there.
You just want one now,
and then making these decks a little bit more
Right.
accessible. Like I think these products are best when they're accessible to new players. I just wish that some of the, I guess, core of the deck was, I guess, based around like good deck building strategies. Like put in some signets, for example, instead of like 3 mana rocks, right? Or I don't even think there was was there a rampant growth in Land's Wrath? I don't know if there was.
no, I don't.
So
I don't
like
think so.
where's the 2 mana ramp? Like if you want to be able to bring this to a table with friends that may have already been established in Commander, it's not necessarily going to be the most engaging time if you're sitting there waiting till turn 3 until you can finally develop your board and then get into the game after everybody else is like way ahead of you.
Wheeling and dealing.
I don't know. There's things I like and things I don't necessarily like.
And I think that's a really interesting point, because they're still trying to make a product that's not too expensive. Like,
Yeah.
these decks they cost pretty much half as much as like a regular Commander deck if we go by like the general regular MSRP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then so that is it sucks, but we still have to kind of take in that monetary value. And I still like this product better than what the Planeswalker decks are, because obviously people, like said, didn't care about them. This is definitely a cool take on it, and I think they can, go somewhere from here. If it wasn't a product that was selling very much in the first place, and this one still doesn't, put a little bit more into it and make it cost more and just see what happens,
Yeah, I just think there's like some core game pieces that are still relatively inexpensive, and by reprinting them, it would drop the price even more. So like the signets, for example, or cards like Rampant Growth, like those are not expensive by any means. I just think they, teach some important fundamentals for ramp and developing your board in the early game.
And it's really weird because they definitely threw the Dimir Signet into the Sneak Attack deck, but Lion's Wrath did not get any signets, of course, except for the Arcane Signet. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also, I agree about the ramp package. That's usually a qualm I have with this product. But the lands too is a problem. I think maybe the lands deck doesn't have enough lands, and the sneak attack deck has too many. They've gotten into the habit of putting 38 lands in these decks, and I just don't know how much they're looking at the average CMC versus. I think they're afraid of players getting in a situation where they get mana screwed and they're not playing a land every turn. And I get that because, like Riley said, these are products for new players. And so you don't want that player to have a bad experience, or they're not going to keep buying the product. But, I think the lands need a little zhuzh, I think we just need a little bit better lands. I know we're not going to get shock lands, but I think we can do better.
Yeah.
Oh, Mindstone, that's nice. But going back to the talking about the financial value, that these decks are, these two decks together are the same price as a single commander deck has costed the last few years. And the value is really here in the reprints that you're getting. The new cards, they've come down in value as well as the reprints since these deck lists were announced. But they're like Sig, River Cutthroat, or Una, Queen of the Fae, or just putting Arcane Signets in here makes this product. I think the value is really here for even enfranchised players that maybe just want this for the parts, or just buy this and hang on to it.
Yeah, they probably play pretty well against each other. I mean, I imagine they're a similar power level. The unfortunate thing, of course, is like I think these compared to the Ikoria decks out of the box are a little bit underpowered. But it would be interesting to compare them, like in an actual game, to see how they perform.
Yeah, that would be. I wonder too, like, do you guys think we're gonna start getting these? I know we're getting another set with Commander Legends, but do you think we're still gonna get like the 4 or 5, Commander annual product, or is this what Commander is gonna look like going forward, or do you think we're gonna get both? What? Because I haven't heard anything about either. We got that spoiler for the upcoming sets for 2021, but they didn't say whether or not we were going to get commander decks with all those sets.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe this is kind of them testing the waters to see how successful this product is. But who knows? Like Wizards could just take this approach and jam it down our throats too.
Yeah, sometimes there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of rhyme or reason to what they do.
Yeah.
I think like at least for next year, we're still going to have like a regular commander product because these are built very, very differently, where we only have like 3 new cards in each.
Absolutely. And we also don't get the secondary commanders. Like the Sneak Attack deck does have on-color secondary commanders, but in all the commander decks, we normally get 3 commanders that are in the colors that you could play with out of the box. So this product's different in that way, and just kind of forces you to play with the face commander.
Yeah, again, like, it's a little more basic. It's a different kind of product, and I don't think, like, maybe they will start releasing regular commander decks, kind of like how they are with these ones, and have them like how the Ikoria ones were, but I really don't think they're going to go away from that kind of product where we get, like, a whole bunch of new cards and whatnot. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that about sums up how we feel about these decks. If nothing else, it's an intriguing product, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with it.
For sure.
So we're going to move on, get to the upgrades. So both Eric and Riley have taken one of these decks and given it a facelift. And like we said at the top of the episodes, or top of this episode, excuse me, Riley, you swapped out 40 cards, and Eric, you swapped out 18. And Riley swapped out 40 cards because he has the Land's Wrath deck, and well, none of us were too impressed with Oban, so Riley switched to Angry Omnath, and that's the deck upgrade we're going to be talking about. So we're giving Oban an upgrade to Angry Omnath, and I think it's quite an upgrade.
Oh yeah, and I mean, of course, like the 40 cards is taking a 3-color deck and squeezing it back down into 2 colors. So a lot of those slots are due to taking out lands or taking out white cards that would otherwise not be legal to run in a 2-color deck. But yeah, I'm calling this Land's Wrath, Omnath's Revenge.
Nice, I love it. Love it. And we'll have we can link all this stuff. We have like links to the new deck lists as well as links to the removals and additions lists, and we'll link all that in the show notes, so you can follow along if you want to. I'll just go through the list quickly here and the categories. Obviously, the commander was removed, Oban, Moldiah Ancestor. Riley removed 15 lands, Boros Garrison, Boros Guildgate, Jungle Shrine, Crows and Grip, Naya Panorama, Needle Spires, 7 Plains, Selesnya Guildgate, Selesnya Sanctuary,
Sorry, just to clarify, it's Crows and Verge.
Crows and Verge.
Not Crows and Grip.
Crows and Grip. No, I wish that wasn't here. My mistake. I got Crows and Grip on the
Imagine if
on the
that
brain.
was like a modal double face card.
Oh,
Ooh,
That'd be nice.
yes, please.
that'd be wicked.
I'd put Crows and Verge back into my decks.
Yeah.
So each one of these lands obviously was removed just because it produces white mana, and that's not allowed. So we'll move on to the enchantments here. We have Together Forever, Banishing Light, Retreat to Emeria. Same story here.
You know what? I have to stop you there on Retreat to Emeria. That the thing that really kind of irked me, and I don't know why it has irked me so much, but at its face, this deck was intended to be like a landfall +1/+1 counter synergy deck, and they had just spoiled Felidar Retreat, which is basically Retreat to Emeria that produces 2/2 cats instead of 1/1 cores, and has the other option of putting +1/+1 counters on each creature you control and giving them vigilance until end of turn instead of just +1/+1 until end of turn.
Oh yeah, this is a great card.
Yeah, Felidar Retreat is a fantastic card and would have been perfect for this deck. And it's just like a slap in the face that they they put in Retreat to Emeria instead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is a very fair point. So, the instant package here that was removed, we have Condemn, Inspiring Call, Naya Charm, Crush Contraband, Sylvan Reclamation. Sorceries, we have Planar Outburst, Hour of Revelation, Nissa's Renewal, and Treacherous Terrain. I don't think I've ever seen that card.
not that great.
It's not the best.
Then the creatures removed, we have Murasa Root Grazer, Abzan Falconer, Evolution Sage, Tuskguard Captain, Armorcraft Judge, Emeria Angel, Core Cartographer, Trove Warden, Elite Scale Guard, Admonition Angel. That's one of the pricier reprints in this one. Sun Titan and Emeria Shepherd. Oh, love me some Sun Titan.
Sun Titan's great.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Emeria Shepherd as well. I think she's one of those cards that I always want to play, but she's also 7 mana.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
Yeah, it's great ability, but 7 mana. Whoa.
Okay, so let's move on to the interesting part here, the additions. So, lands, just some basics, 8 forests and 10 mountains. Seems pretty straightforward. And artifacts. So we have Altar of Dementia. This is very interesting. This I used to have an Angry Omnath deck, and this card never came up on my radar, but in retrospect, this card's amazing because, you know, you have your 5/5 elementals that Omnath makes, and whenever an elemental you control dies, Omnath bolts. Is it any target? Or just creature?
Yeah.
It's any target. And with the sack outlet, you know, you're getting that bonus from Omnath, but then you're also getting to mill a player for 5 cards. I love it.
Yeah, and honestly, I think most of the time you're probably going to want to mill yourself, especially if you've had a card like, spoilers, Splendid Reclamation in your hand.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Or you also have the other... no, I was looking at the deck list. The Mending of Dominaria must just be in the regular deck list, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little slower than Splendid Rec, but still solid card. So let's move on to the enchantments here. We have Garrick's Uprising, Greater Good, another fantastic sack outlet. Perilous Forays, Warstorm Surge. Perilous Forays. This is a very great card. I always forget about this card. It's 3 green for an enchantment. You pay 1, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a land card with a basic land type, and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle your library. Then that, with a basic land type text, is very important because that means you can get dual lands or just, you know, those Throne of Eldraine lands that have the basic land type, anything like that. It's a very cool card. And you're just recycling, right? You're just recycling your 5/5s, and then you get another 5/5 if Omnath's on the battlefield.
Yeah, basically, like if you have, 5 mana and a 5/5 on the battlefield with Omnath, basically just pay 1, bolt something, and get another 5/5. Then pay 1, sack the 5/5, bolt something, get another 5/5. Like, it seems like a pretty fun loop. And then you add something like Warstorm Surge to the mix, and that can deal a lot of damage.
Yeah, whenever it's 5, Warstorm Surge is 5 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Yikes.
Yep. That's a lot of extra damage on top of that 3 bolts.
Riley added 2 instants. We have Nature's Claim and Momentous Fall. Love Nature's Claim. Very good competitive card as well.
Yeah, just a cheap removal spell. I felt like there was a little bit lacking in the realm of removal. So it's just a nice form of interaction.
Absolutely. Sorceries, we have Regrowth, Savage Twister, Summer Bloom, Sylvan Awakening, Chain Reaction, Decimate, that's a personal favorite, Splendid Reclamation, Escape to the Wilds, and Blasphemous Act. So Savage Twister is perfect because,
I love Savage
yeah,
Twister.
you can you get to decide, right? So if there's a bunch of little piddly creatures on the battlefield, you can take them out and your 5/5s will stay strong. Or you take out your 5/5s and just start bolting stuff.
And sometimes these like conditional board wipes, like the ones where you have to pay X into, like sometimes they're not necessarily the best option, just considering that they don't scale up very well. Mm-hmm. But the fact that we're in Gruul and we're ramping and we're a landfall deck, like I felt like we would probably have enough mana to deal with whatever we needed to at that point in time.
Yeah.
Also like Sylvan Awakening as like a finisher.
Mm-hmm.
Because on top of that, they become elementals.
Yes, exactly.
So then if you sacrifice them, you get the Omnath trigger still.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was super fun. Like, imagine playing Sylvan Awakening, having something like Altar of Dementia on the battlefield just as a sack outlet, not even caring necessarily about mill. But then sacking all of your elementals, all of your lands to Altar of Dementia. I don't know, maybe target yourself, mill yourself down a bit. Bolt, basically, however, bolt whoever is left in the game, and then use something like Splendid Reclamation to bring all of your lands back.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Some pretty good stuff.
The last category we have here is creatures. We have Rada, Heart of Keld, Turn Timber Sower, Crash of Rhino Beetles, Ingot Chewer, Green Warden of Murasa, and Phyto Titan?
Yeah.
Got it. Nice. Yes.
So Phyto Titan's a pretty weird one.
Yeah, I've never seen that card.
It's 4
4
green for a 7/2 plant elemental. When it dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next upkeep. Just a free sack fodder?
Yep. So it works really well with Greater Good.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. That's a really cool creature.
Huh. And it's an elemental.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
The synergies.
Yeah.
Also, I love the Crash of Rhino Beetles. It's a nice card.
It's just a big dummy.
Yeah.
Ingot Chewer as well. Ingot Chewer has Evoke for a red. So basically, you can cast it for its Evoke cost by paying red. And if you do, it's sacrificed when it enters the battlefield. But there's an opportunity there to even do something like even sacrifice it with the sacrifice trigger on the stack to Greater Good to draw 3, discard 3. Or, I mean, it just enters, sacrifices itself, and then bolts something. So you're taking out an artifact, maybe taking out a small creature, or just throwing the 3 damage at somebody's face.
That's a lot of value for 1 mana.
That's pretty cool.
And Turn Timber Sower in here, this was, I think this was in the Lord Windgrace deck. A couple of years ago. It's 2 and a green for a 3/3 elf druid. When one or more land cards is put into your graveyard from anywhere, create a 0/1 green plant creature token, and you can pay a green to sacrifice 3 creatures. Return target land card from your graveyard to your hand. So is this just in here for the recursive value or like an additional sack outlet? Because you can sacrifice any creatures. It doesn't have to be the plants.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I just figured there's themes of putting lands into my graveyards. There's some themes of sacrifice as well. So it's just like, it seemed like a nice little like middle of the line value creature. Mm-hmm. Not a bomb by any means, but it just, I'd like to try it out in a deck like this and see how it performs.
Yeah, I've always found this creature to be a fantastic utility card. It's worked really well for me. So very cool.
Yeah, because you can definitely get back your lands as well. So it being like a sack outlet, just the bonus of getting land back is pretty sweet.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so yeah, this is a pretty solid upgrade package, Riley. I do think Omnath is a. I mean, I'm biased because like I have an Omnath deck, but it does seem like a lot more fun commander and a lot more interactive too with being able to spread direct damage around the way he can. And yeah, Oban just seems a little like one of you said, like he leaves a bit to be desired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the list here that I provided, I went with a budget theme of under $5 US for each card. So no card here is over $5 US. At least at the time of recording.
Yeah, watch
I
the
was
prices
actually-
just go crazy after this goes live.
Who knows? But I mean, Greater Good has always been a highly played card because it is great and good.
Oh.
And I was surprised that it was under $5 at this point. So that's definitely a fun card to play with and works really well in Omnath because, you play a land, get a 5/5, sacrifice to Greater Good, draw 5, discard 3, fill up your graveyard, have a good time.
All right, so let's move on to the sneak attack deck. The sneak attack upgrades here. Let me just look at this. So, like we said, Eric didn't change commanders because Anawan is pretty cool. But he did remove 18 cards and also added 18 cards. So the cards that we're removing, we don't have fancy categories like Riley, but it is all on one list, unlike Riley. So I think you guys both win this one. Anyways, we have Changeling Outcast, Dimir Guildgate, Distant Melody, Endless Obedience, Faded Return, Frog Tosser Banneret, that's a fun one, Heirloom Blade, Lazav Dimir Mastermind, Marsh Flitter, Necromantic Selection, Rise from the Grave, Scourge of Fleets, Scythe Claw. Wow, Eric, you're really putting me through the ringer here. Salumgar's Command and Soul Manipulation. Oh boy.
Should be 3 more on there.
Oh, here they are. Spinal Embrace, Triton Shorestalker, and Zulaport Cutthroat. I'm surprised Triton Stalker wasn't already in the deck. That seems like a no-brainer.
It is.
Yeah, these are removals.
Oh, right. The
Those are all the
removals. Doi.
Yeah. So, just to say, like, I didn't want to spend a lot on looking at what lands were in the deck and stuff, and put in some untapped lands. You can probably take out like a couple basics as well. The reason why I removed 1 land is because I added sort of 1 land, and so we'll see the exact swap from the cards to add there for that whole Dimir Guildgate thing.
Yeah. Cool. Distant Melody. Yeah, Distant Melody always... I don't think I've ever had like an ideal Distant Melody play, even in like dedicated tribal decks. It's just like if you're at a point where you have that many creatures on the battlefield, you should probably be winning the game.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a Windmore kind of draw spell. I've always had situations with Distant Melody where it's either fantastic or it does absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And usually the absolutely nothing part is right after a board wipe when you need it most.
Yeah, exactly.
You draw the Distant Melody, you're like, oh, I get to draw nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a big fan of just non-conditional card draw, in the sense of one of my favorite card draw spells is Chart a Course, just because it helps get you 2 cards deep. And sure, you may have to discard every once in a while, but if you've attacked, then you don't.
That's right. Getting 2 cards deep feels pretty good sometimes.
Yeah, and then so there were like 3 cards that pretty much do the same thing. There's Endless Obedience, Faded Return, and Rise from the Grave. They're just all very expensive for getting back any creature.
Yeah.
Yeah, they should have put Exhume in here. No, that helps your opponents. Don't do that.
Yeah. So I Eric, just before we get on to the additions, I noticed that you took out a couple rogues. Were you thinking of going a different direction here?
Nope. Basically, for trying to make some additions, the couple rogues that I removed, first of all, with Zulaport Cutthroat, I don't think we have a lot of stuff dying.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't really The two that I made a hard cut on was the Changeling Outcast and the Triton Shorestalker, because they are both rogues that can't be blocked.
Yeah.
But it was getting tough at the end to like go through playable cards to try and remove to keep that rogue synergies, but put in some really fun stuff. So we are still going for in the end, it is still the rogue playability, but the deck is really going off of incidental milling to make us more powerful. So we're not really going to be winning by making our opponents mill out, but when the opponents mill more cards, our deck will end up being stronger.
Cool.
Yeah, and just talking about like the lands that like could have been removed. This deck compared to the lands deck is a little less I don't know what the word is, maybe complex in terms of its land base. You know, you have mostly basic lands, and the lands that aren't basic lands, you know, you have like Mirrored Landscape, things like that, but otherwise it's a lot of ETB tap lands that tap for Dimir colors. And, you know, if you wanted to upgrade this deck, you could, you know, put in the Scry land from Theros, or you could just put in like Watery Grave or Drowned Catacomb, just some better Dimir lands that don't necessarily enter the battlefield tapped, but otherwise the land base of this deck is pretty straightforward, as is. So let's move on to the additions. First off, we have Bruvik the Grandiloquent, Duskmantle Guildmage, Glasspool Mimic. Ooh, it's a flip card, so it's Glasspool Mimic, and on the flip side is Glasspool Shore. Flip side is a land that taps for a blue. I like it. And then we have Keeper of Keys, Memory Erosion, Mind Grind, Mind Crank, Mortivore, Nighthawk Scavenger, shout out to Trev, Psychic Corrosion, Rune Crab, Sakashima the Imposter, Sire of Stagnation, Thieves Guild Enforcer, Trailblazer Boots, Whispering Madness, Whisper Silk Cloak, and Zareth San the Trickster. So Eric, I see here you have the Duskmantle Guildmage Mind Crank combo pieces. So all you need is a little bit of damage, and well, he just does it all himself if you have enough mana. Awesome.
Yep.
That's nice to just have that in there.
I love Sire of Stagnation. That card is a beating.
It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
And then so of course with us milling already, if people exile some more cards, there's just less cards still, and you're drawing cards off of that. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, I remember like not even noticing that card till like a year ago, and I was like, how did I not?
I know. You know what? I was in a very similar boat where I had never seen this card. I don't know exactly why I'd never seen it, but it just seemed like awesome. Just every time. Okay, we should read it. 4 blue black for a 5/7 Eldrazi. It's got Devoid, so it's colorless, I guess. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library, and you draw 2 cards.
Yeah, this card's nuts. I used to run it in my Fenix God of Deception mill deck. So, you know, you have that effect, but then you can also tap him down to mill an opponent for 7 cards. So it's
just
pretty good.
Such huge incidental value.
Yeah, and a big body.
And then so also with which guy was it? The Mortivore. His power and toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards. There's also another creature in the deck already like that. And so with those creatures, we do have the Trailblazer Boots and the Whisper Silk Cloak, which makes the creatures unblockable. So we got a big guy, and we'll just get in there unblockable for a bunch of damage.
Nice.
Trailblazer Boots is 2 and then 2 to equipped. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk. So most commander decks don't run all basics. Most of the time, Trailblazer Boots is just creature can't be blocked.
Yeah, for sure.
And Kevin, I know you like the Monarch so much.
I do. I love the Monarch. Let's get combat
So
going.
we have the Keeper of Keys.
So Keeper of Keys is 3 blue for a 4/4 human rogue mutant. When Keeper of Keys enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you're the Monarch, creatures you control can't be blocked this turn. Perfect. This is really going to help you get that mill going.
Yep. Obviously, all of our rogues are getting in for damage.
And then you get to stay the Monarch. Well, I hope so.
Well.
We'll see.
And then we've got Trevor's probably new favorite card,
Yeah.
Nighthawk Scavenger.
Yeah, 1 black for a 1+*3 vampire rogue. It has flying, death touch, and lifelink, and its power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types among cards in your opponent's graveyards. Can you imagine if this costs 2 mana? Oh boy.
Oh boy. Even for the 3 though, I think a lot of times this will be, like 5 or 6 power.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is definitely a life-linking death touch flyer that I can get behind.
Yeah.
This is more of a black staple for you, Riley, than Vampire Nighthawk.
Yes, nowadays for sure. Oh man.
And then
Sorry, I was gonna say Ruin Crab. I played a sealed deck that had 2 of these.
oh boy.
That was fun. It was like 7 creatures control. But nonetheless, I mean, Rune Crab is just incidental value for, blue mana, 0/3 crab, landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent mills 3 cards. So, yeah, incidental mill on every land drop is a nice little treat.
Yeah, that's basically like, I want to put some other cards in here that targeted all opponents for the mill, not just like single target. So that's the Ruin Crab, and then also the Psychic Corrosion. So whenever we draw a card, each opponent mills 2 cards.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about it. We have that out with the Sire of Stagnation. Opponent drops a land, you draw 2 cards, everyone mills 4 cards.
Good times.
And I suppose Sakashima is in here just so you can double up on Anawan's triggers.
You got it.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a clone that can. It's a clone, but if it clones, what does it say? It's it's 2 blue for a 3/1 legendary human rogue. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except its name is Sakashima the Imposter. It's legendary in addition to its other types, and has pay 2 blue. Return this creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So it's kind of like Spark Double, but different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the way they worded it back then is a little bit different. But yeah, we can make a copy of another legendary creature out there. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And the nice thing about Sakashima is you can copy any creature on the battlefield instead of, like, Spark Double is limited to just creatures you control.
Mm-hmm.
But that little bounce ability, it can be nice. Like if you have that mana up, maybe you're holding up a instant speed card draw spell or a counter spell, and somebody goes to play a board wipe, and you just want to get Sakashima back to your hand, then that nice little added piece of flexibility is pretty cool.
Totally. And of course, if someone plays some big dumb Eldrazi, you may want to bring Sakashima back to your hand and get an Eldrazi next turn.
For sure. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, well, overall, guys, I think you made some pretty great upgrades to these decks. I think they're fine out of the box, but I think what you've done here just hones them to a tighter game plan.
Yeah, man.
Alrighty, so I do believe that is all we have for you today. I'm surprised at the length of this episode. I thought it was going to be much longer, but
we're just too efficient for you, Kevin.
We're just too good. We're too good. So we're going to bring this episode to a close, and we do hope you enjoyed our take on the Zendikar Commander decks, as well as the upgrade suggestions. Get in touch with us. Let us know if you're going to be picking up this product, if you already have, what your experience has been with it. Thank you so much for listening, as always, and thank you to our editor, Ainsley. We're going to be back next week, just like we're back every week, to talk still more Zendikar, a little bit more Zendikar, and then we're going to be getting back on the lore train. So if you've been enjoying that stuff, you have something to look forward to. So, like we said, the links to everything we talked about today is going to be in the show notes. I'll make sure of it. You can find me on Instagram at Command Beacon, and Riley, tell the fine people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at RilesDayton, or you can find me on Instagram at Riley_Dayton. Yep,
and like Eric said at the top, you can find the show or where to get in touch with us if you rewind this episode back to like the first 5 minutes. That's a joke. Anyways, again, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
See you, Space Cowboy.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Turn 1 Soul Ring.